Then she says, will do. So there are the eyes, the eyes, licking of lips, eyes covered. She doesn't respond. 45 minutes later, he's saying, you are quiet. And then she says, oh, you want them now? Sorry, I was still at the gym. So here you have her first trying to get to avoid by saying, oh, my phone deleted everything. He doesn't take that. He says, but anything, a few that you've got. Although that's kind of saying to you, I don't have anything to give you, but you must have some somewhere. And then she just doesn't respond to that. Then he follows up. And so she says, oh, I was at the gym. So I'm doing other things. I'm not focusing on you. I'm not concentrating on you. I'm doing other things. So here she's used a kind of deferral. He has waited. She has tried to...
I don't understand.
Sure.
What, are you saying she was not at the gym?
No, she's saying to me, I was at the gym, but she's saying I was doing something else. I was not going to... He was expecting an immediate response. And she's saying I was doing other things. That's how I read that when she says, sorry, I was still at the gym.
Which may be true.
Exactly. But the thing is, she was doing other things. It's more of the point here, I think, to look at is that he asks, she says, I haven't got any. Then he says, you must still have some. Then she says, will do. And then he's waiting as if he's expecting them immediately. And then she's saying, I'm sorry, I was busy doing something else. So she's not exactly rushing to do what he wants her to do. She's deferring, saying, okay, we'll do. Then he says, comes back with, take off the clothes on your upper body. So it's not just a photo. Now he wants a photo of her, I'm presuming, with her top off. Then her answer is again, and she's deferring. This is again an example of deferring.
At what time, can you just give us a timestamp of that?
So I'm assuming this is Kulula Umtla.
So it's 2028.
2028, yeah. Then she laughs and says, we'll try later. So it's the second time she has said, oh, I'm busy deferring. So it's another example of her deferring. And it's another way she said, it's the third time she said, I don't have photographs. So she'll try later. Then there is a profile photo that is uploaded. And he indicates that smart emoji saying stylish.
Chair, that is on 1166 at 2032, page 1166, at the bottom of the page. It's also on the next page, 1167, on top there as well.
She said, we'll try later. She's again put off once again, taking the photos. And he says, please, for that assessment. Stylish, which is her having put up that profile picture. And then he says again, I'll wait. Presumably, and this is in response to her saying, we'll try later. And this is for his question about take off the clothes on your upper body. They're saying, I'll wait. Then he puts his hands on his head and says, robbed. And then there's a discussion here that I think is quite important where he calls her tricky and a trickster, which is saying that she's avoiding and evading, giving him what he wants. And she says, do you see, I've given you the picture. I haven't given it to you directly because it is inappropriate. So she's put up a profile picture which would be accessible to everybody, which everybody can see. She hasn't sent him a personal picture of herself, certainly not without her top off. And he's calling her tricky and evasive for having done that, for having conned him and scammed him. Then he sends a message at 20:55. So 20:53, he asks again, the finger pointing upwards. Maybe a few pics you may send as halfway proof. So he's asking again. He's reminding her, pointing upwards. And he says, and again, you are tricky. So there's an acknowledgement here that she's not giving him what he wants. And that is something that should make him question, why is she not giving me what I want? Should I be asking for, it's the kind of question you should be thinking about, should I be asking for this if somebody is not giving it to me, if I'm repeatedly asking and they're not giving it to me? Maybe that should make you stop and pause as to why not. So then there is go halfway now, then leave the rest for another day. She says, will do. And I think it's worth just saying how many times she's going to do it, but doesn't do it. Because that alone should tell you something. That she's saying she will do it is, I think, a way, this is what I mean by deferral, as a way of giving a kind of superficial agreement without having any intention of complying. She's saying, yes, I'll do it, but I'll do it later. I'll do it at some point. And then there is the 50% at 20:56, so 50%, again presuming how much of the clothing he wishes to have removed. Nigger, eyes covered in emoji.
Let me just understand. Are you saying that, is it your evidence that she did not have any intention of doing so?
If I look at the end of the day, there was no photograph with her clothing off to send to him. She never sent him that photo. So I read this. When you look at, when people say they will do something and they don't do something, then you can see that they didn't want to do that.
Really?
Yes.
They might have wanted, but because of certain circumstances, those circumstances prevented them from doing so.
That could be possible, but if you look at her evidence, I don't see any evidence of her ever having sent him a topless photo.
No, that's not the point I'm asking. On what basis do you say she did not have the intention to do so?
If I look at the context of a conversation and the way in which it is unfolding, she's saying to him, I'm going to do it, but she doesn't do it. Or if I'm going to at some point in the future.
What if she did, in fact, intend to do it, but later changed her mind?
She would have changed her mind. She still would not have done it. At this point, she's saying it, but she's not doing it.
Isn't there some difficulty in reading somebody's message and then say, I read this message, I hear it, but this person does not mean to say what she said?
I think if one looks at the context of her messages, this is what I'm talking about being, I'll do it, but I won't do it. There is a slippage here between what she says and what she does. So she says, will do, but it isn't done immediately. And then he puts these little pressurizing emojis on her. Where is it? I'm looking, I'm waiting, you quiet. But she still hasn't done it.
Let me put it to you this way. You read the message which says what it says. And then you draw your conclusion that she did not intend to do it. That is your conclusion.
When I look at the multiple messages, let me put it to you this way. When I look how often she says she'll do things, but she doesn't do things, my impression is that she sometimes says, that's an example of deferring it. I'll do it later. Maybe she will never do it. She doesn't do it right away. He asks her to do things right away, but she defers it. She says, I will do it. It's like the same thing with the meeting. I'm going to do it. I will do it, but it never actually gets done. So I'm just pointing to that. Maybe she didn't intend to do it, but she never actually did it within this time frame. So it's giving the impression that she responds to say she'll do something, but she doesn't do it immediately, which doesn't necessarily indicate somebody who is very enthusiastic about the task.
Go ahead.
There's a certain reluctance here. Because he's saying to her, will you do it? And he's still waiting, and she says, oh, I was busy. Will you do it? I will do. But she doesn't do it. So I think one has to look consistently at it, of saying, I'm going to do it, but it doesn't ever happen. It's a bit like the example of when a parent asks a child to clean up their room, and the child says, yes, I'll do it just now, but they don't do it. So what I'm trying to point to here is...
from your example, you mean the child never intended to do it in the first place?
Usually not, or they're just trying to defer when they have to do it. So what I'm trying to say is that when somebody says they're going to do something, but they don't do it, then that should raise some questions as to there is a gap here between what the person says and what the person does.
Are
That's
you
my
not
point.
making a huge jump? If somebody says, I'll do something, and later that person doesn't do it, your conclusion is that that person, when that person said, I'll do it, didn't mean it.
That can be one of the conclusions you can draw. The conclusion you can draw is that there's a certain reluctance here. If you ask somebody to do something and you ask them a couple of times and they don't do it.
No, but you ask him once.
No,
The
he
person
asked-
says, I will do it, and then the person then doesn't do it. Are you not supposed to first know why the person didn't do it before you draw the conclusion that the person did not want to do it?
I think if I look at the testimony here, there are a couple of requests. Where is the picture? The picture is put up. It's, I want more than that picture. I'll do that. Waiting. Can you send it to me? I'll do it later. That is indicating that somebody doesn't want to do it right now. So that
Well-
merely puts a question mark over,
Well, that
does
is
this
your
person want to do
conclusion.
it?
That is your interpretation of the situation.
My conclusion is that this is not somebody who's enthusiastic about doing this.
Yes, that's your conclusion.
Yes. That there is a delay here.
Just to bring it back to the complainant's evidence as well, she testified that she did not feel it is appropriate to send her pictures to the judge president. Does that correlate with what you found on how you viewed messages?
Yes.
And that's also why she said she uploaded the picture on the status.
Yes.
Because she didn't feel that it is appropriate for her to send the picture to the judge president.
Yes, because it is an inappropriate request from a senior person to a junior person is, can I have a photograph?
Yeah, I do think the advocate Skeppers is suggesting answers to the experts. I don't want to disrupt it, but
I can't hear you.
I do think advocate Skeppers is suggesting an answer to the witness.
I'm not suggesting an answer, Chair. I am on the questions that the Chair asked the witness. Why does she come to that conclusion that seeing the replies from the complainant, she did not want to send the photos? Because that was her conclusion from what she read from the...
Except that I was posing a general question.
I hear. But
And you took it to a different angle.
but
I
we
was just
need,
asking her whether if we read a message which says this, I'll do it, I'll do this, and the person does not do it, it was a general question.
but it was also asked that her conclusion on this messages is that the complainant did not want to send the photo. That was the question to this witness. And the complainant testified that she did not want to send the pictures.
Yes, Mrs. Kakani is saying don't suggest an answer to the witness.
I won't suggest an answer. I'm just asking if what she testified now relates to what the complainant testified. I'm not asking, suggesting any questions or answers.
That is the explanation she's giving, Mrs. Kakani.
It's okay, Chair.
Thank you. You may continue.
So it's back to the question about top off 50%, which presumably means 50% without her top off. This is, by the way, in her testimony, so this is why I am drawing some of these conclusions. I did read her testimony.
Sorry, she needs to, you need to help us each time. Which page?
It's 1170, Chair.
At 2056.
Yes.
So her response is, you know that when I want money, you will give it to me. So this is quite an unpleasant reaction to give. Or to say, you must give me money. So if I read the complainant's testimony, that's her trying to put him off. She's trying to suggest to him, this is a mercenary transaction. If you want my photo, then there will be money involved. She's making it clear that this is not an emotional attraction, a fondness. It's now a transaction. And then his response is, life is not about money. And then he asks again, maybe you are still asking a picture. Maybe you're still taking a picture. So I think what's quite important here is to look at, and this has informed some of my thinking around here, is how many times he's asking for the picture. Where is it? Where is it? Hands up. He makes a comment about that 35%, so presumably not the 50% less of clothing he wanted. It's only 35 cents. She says, no ways, do not play a trick on me. And then he says to her again, you are a trickster.
Sorry, where are you now? At what time?
21:23. So again, she is not, and this is where I read her as being evasive, because he's saying, you are not giving me what I want. You are tricking me. You are robbing me. This is not what I asked for. So that's a 21:23. Don't play tricks on me. And then her response is, actually, it's 70% when adding the other one. So she's again trying to point out to him, oh, well, yes, I've tried to meet what you requested. And then his response, and this presumably is to the picture, is that the other one was a non-starter and you know it. So meaning that the other picture, the profile picture, was not acceptable, and she knows that. And her response is, oh no, Jesus. So that one reads as, oh no, you're not satisfied. It's now 21:43. She still hasn't sent him the photograph, and he's asked a number of times for the photograph. Then they continue, are you still sleeping? No, I'm still awake. Then he asks her about, remember to delete.
Chair, that is on 1174 at 2222. What do you make of that? The question from him.
This is somebody who knows this is inappropriate. He doesn't want put it this way, he doesn't want a record of this to be maintained. The conclusion from that is there are things in there he doesn't want people to see. Then we go back to, then we look at 2622, where the question is 50% minus 20%, and her response is 100%.
That is on page 1176, Chair.
This presumably is referring back to the photographs and how much clothing should or shouldn't be removed. And his comment is she's trying to respond to that, saying, oh, well, if you add 35%, it's this amount. If you take this away, it's that amount. And he just says, your maths, I give up on it. So he's still going on about the photographs. So if you look at this, there are up to 11 different requests from him, or different ways in which he keeps asking for the photo. So even her saying, I will do, also, he doesn't want to take her word she's going to do it. It's, I want it now. Where is it? What's happening to it? Can it be like this? So there are a number of requests here for the photo, or discussions as to what should or shouldn't be in the photo. This is not something he should be asking for in the first place. And he doesn't explain what he wants the photograph for. The rest of the world is happy enough for the profile pic. Why does he want something different? Why does he want a personal photograph for himself with her top off? And he asks for it repeatedly. And she says in different ways, I don't have it because my phone deleted everything. Oh, I'm busy. Yes, I'll do it. Yes, I'll do it. Oh, but I've put it up. Oh, but if you look at this much, it's that much. So she isn't, and you can see he is dissatisfied with her responses in the way he calls her tricky and a trickster. So he wants something very definite from her, which she is not giving him. So the question that arises from that, if somebody's asking you for something and they don't give it to you, what conclusion should you draw about how willing they are to give that to you? So, if we look at the 9th of June at 5:33, the finger pointing upward. Now, there was quite a lot of discussion in the evidence in chief as to what this would.
Just hold on, it's page 1178. Sorry for interrupting, yes.
That's okay. So, at 5:33 in the morning is pointing upwards, which would seem to imply that that's going back to the conversation of the previous day, picking up from that point. There's a lot of discussion and debate in the testimony, but it seems to be that what is meant here is, I thought you would go down, which the complainant says she interpreted to mean, I would send you a photograph of private parts. And then her comment is busy at work. So there isn't much of an engagement on this day. Then,
What do you make of this reply of hers? What type of reaction is that from her?
I'm busy. It's a form of avoiding. I can't talk to you right now. I'm busy. I've got other things going on.
And then I see later that afternoon at 17 minutes past 5, she still told him, still busy at work.
Yes.
No other conversations that she only replied twice on that day, and both of the times she said she was busy. What do you make of that?
She didn't want to engage. She was, I think when you look at somebody who is not enthusiastic, and I read that she is unenthusiastic in that she does not immediately rush. She's got a phone. She could potentially go and take her. Here she is familiar with how to use her technology, and she uploads profile pictures quite often. She would know how to go and take a photograph with her top off and send it to him. She knows how to do that. She has the technological know-how, and she has the equipment. if she was enthusiastic, she would send it straight away. But it isn't sent straight away.
Was it sent?
No, not that I can see. So I think it's, again, looking at the full context of these pictures, like the repeated requests to let's meet up and be intimate. That's not ever done. So I think what you have to look at here is how much enthusiasm is being expressed. How willing is the complainant to do these things? And the overall picture one gets is there is not great enthusiasm, there's not great willingness on her part.
You know, Ms. Patel, we are going to depend a lot on these messages
Mm-hmm.
as to what they say. Now, I don't know if I understand it correctly. Are you saying that when she said still busy at work, we must understand that message as saying, actually she was not busy, she was just trying to avoid him? Is that how we understand? You want us to interpret it? Or just to take it as its face value that indeed she was a worker, she was busy at work?
You can read it at two levels. She was busy at work, but you'll see that sometimes he doesn't respect her even when she says that. But what I want to say is that sometimes when people are not enthusiastic, you need to look at their communication at two levels. I think especially when people are in a subordinate position and they can't always be straightforward, you do need to consider the possibility that they might be using this as a valid way to avoid having to say no. You do need to consider that.
But that is what you're doing. You're interpreting it as an excuse to give an explanation. But my question is, when she says, look, I depend on the messages, still busy at work, why doesn't actually mean that she's actually busy at work? And we accept it that way.
We can certainly do that, but I think my point would be to look at, she's often telling him she's busy at work and he still ignores that. That she's not willing to really engage with him. There isn't an enthusiastic engagement because you can stop if you're really keen, you will stop what you're doing at work in order to respond and say yes, this, that, and the other.
So your proposition is, when she says still busy at work, we must read something more into it and say, it shows that she was not willing to engage him.
It shows that her work was more important to her than him engaging her. That was more important to her. And even if she uses it after hours, her work, she has other priorities. So what she is saying is that I have other priorities right now.
No, I understand that. My concern was, are you going so far as to say she has got other priorities, right? Because she's busy at work. But are you saying to us, we must go beyond that and actually say, that message indicates that she was not keen? Is that what you are telling us?
If you look in the overall context, you can put it this way. There are other things that are more of a priority to her than engaging with Judge Mbenenge. You can see this with when she says to him, I need to do my ironing, which is later in it. So there are ways in which she says to him, I am busy with other things, I can't talk to you now, which is saying this is not a priority.
I think you understood my point. I understand what you're saying.
Did she converse with him that day?
No.
All right, you can proceed.
Okay, so we have another couple of days where she's also talking about busy in motion court, an urgent that took forever. Talking a little bit about what was taking forever, expressing appreciation for their work, that kind of conversation for the next few days. Then the next conversation where they go back into more sexual topics is on the 16th of June.
16th of June is on page 1182, Chair. 1182.
So there is a conversation about stress at work, which she's talking about the difficulties with the court manager and how it has left her. And he then says something about, or gives an indication. Try and find it. Okay, so it will be at 1723.
Chair, that will be on page 1190.
Maybe, sorry, we should go a little bit earlier to question of the hug. So that's at 1715.
1715 is on page 1188, Chair. The 16th of June is a public holiday in South Africa, so this was after hours. What do you make about that, if you have any comments on that?
Well, again, I think it's going back to the fact that it's again blurring these workplace boundaries. Not a work day.
Yes, you wanted to go back to 1715?
So his comment is, I'll be happy and give you a hug. She makes a response about...
Just make sure you're...
Oh, sorry. She makes a comment about you disciplined. Once you have a principle, you'll be like an eagle. And then she commenting directly on the hug, responding or replying to that text. She says the latter is exciting. Maybe it's better. And the evidence she's talking about, it's been a hard day for her. A kind of reassuring hug would be appreciated. And then his response to that is, as long as it won't generate warmth. So suggesting it would be possibly, or implying that it may be more than just a reassuring hug. It could generate some kind of warmth. So she asks, how's that possible? He just says it could. And then he says, depends. Please declare up front, it's not a shame. Which she interpreted him to be meaning, you can be clearer. You can say what you want out of this hug. It's not going to be embarrassing if you say more. And she says, well, some things are better not said. Then he asks at 1724, are you quick to melt? So again, asking about what would, if I'm hugging you, would you be, I'm reading it back to her, because it was in the context of the discussion around the hug, would you melt quickly? Would your defenses be overcome? Would your desires be aroused? Would you melt in my arms? Would you melt? She says, depends.
What do you make of that answer first? Depends. Are you quick to melt?
It's quite non-committal. It depends on the situation. It's a very neither here nor there response. It doesn't tell you. It's a very general response. Anyone could make it. It depends on what situation. And you can see, for him, it's not clear what she's saying. So he says, depends on. He says, so first are you thinking? So she doesn't respond immediately. Yeah, are you still thinking? Presumably on the depends, which is what he puts underneath. Are you still thinking? It depends on. And then her response is, no, I'm not thinking, I'm cooking. So again, I am doing something else, like I am busy at work, I am cooking. And her response to on is the oven temperature. So he laughs and then deletes her emojis. And then there is him saying, the question he asked, and then deletes it. But you can see the question is there because she replies to it. If you happen to have melted step 1. So the way I read her response is she's tried to shift, is that firstly she's tried to shift the conversation away from melting and hugs and warmth into, this is what I'm doing right now, and it's cooking. I'm cooking right now, so she's tried to shift the conversation away from discussions about melting, warmth, hugs, and the liking, and I am cooking right now. It's back to like, I am busy at work, I am now cooking. So she's telling him what she's doing, what she is busy with. So his question is about, if you happen to have melted step 1, and her reply is, it would mean the marinade worked before the meat. So if we look at the context that she's talking about cooking and meat, his point is, if you happen to have melted step 1, where I would understand that to mean is step 1 in your cooking is your marinade. And she's saying, if the marinade melts it before you've cooked it, your meat, then things haven't worked. If you happen to have melted step 1, marinade has worked before you've even used it. So he agrees.
Yeah.
1191
1732.
at the bottom of the page, Chair. Yes, you can continue. So you are saying that she tried to shift the conversation in another direction?
Yes, she's talking about her cooking, which she's doing at that time. It's not the first time. She talks about doing other things. This is an example. So I am busy, I am cooking, I am studying, and then there's another point where she talks about ironing. So she's talking about what I am doing right now, what my priorities are right now, what I am doing and thinking about. So he agrees, true. And then he goes back to, if you happen to have melted step 1. He returns to that conversation, and it's the ear with the hearing aid.
That is listening. On page 1192, Chair, on the top.
At 1733. So he's still listening for an answer to, if you happen to have melted step 1. Now, hi, as she explained, it means no, and then we have the laughing emojis. Then we have a set of 2 deleted messages, and he's still asking, I am listening, and she's giving zipped lips, I'm not saying. And then we have, at another point, he's again asking. Her response, he says, just speak, and she laughs. And then she asks him as a question of clarity, tell me what is the first step you're talking about? So she is, the way I would understand her to be saying this is, you're not clear. What step 1 are you talking about? So you can see that he's trying to suggest some kind of sexual innuendo with, from this, what if it generates warmth? What if you melt? there is an attempt to perhaps infuse a certain sexuality into the conversation. And she is not hearing that. So she's saying to him, tell me, what is this first step you are talking about? She's asking him to be very explicit. What do you mean? And then he answers, position 1. So she's again says to him, being, stop riddles. His answer, I'm assuming, because she has copied it as a reply, is assuming melting occurs evenly. So she's saying, yes, that's not disputed, which is not really saying anything, assuming melting occurs evenly. So he's back. So his answer is presumably position 1 of action. So it's back to shifting it back into a sexual register. So she's saying to him, what has a name? He must have presumed, one assumes he may have responded, because you have 2 deleted messages and then the question, and you.
That is on page 1194, Chair.
So him asking and you suggests that he may have given what his favorite positions were. You know, I've told you now, I'm assuming, could be wrong, but it suggests he may have, usually when you do that in conversation, I've told you, now you tell me. And you? Her response is, again, not to tell him, to say, oh, there is no space on my phone. And I don't want these messages to be seen. So she's still not telling him. She's just saying, I'm deleting them. He agrees with her, and then he returns. Position 1 of action, he's listening. I'm coming back to this. This is repeatedly bringing her back to this point of, I want to know. There is some more. Yeah. Then there is again listening, and then there is a message that it seems like he might have deleted because she's replying to it, but I can't find it in the text, is where he says, I do, ellipses, come. The way it's spelt implies ejaculate. But his wording underneath there is, I do delete them rather. And then he covers his eyes. And then again he asks the question, whichever position might come first.
Chair, that's on 1195.
So he's now asked quite repeatedly, which is your favorite position? And she has either tried to divert the conversation, or she has said, I am deleting things off my phone. She's not responding to the question. He's asked it now a couple of times. So now she does respond, but you can see from the questions that follow, it's not the answer he wants. Her answer is, I'll go with whatever, but there's a word I like, surprise. So she's not telling him. She's saying, you can surprise me, but that's an answer that also doesn't tell him what her favorite position is. So he responds with a lol. And then he persists, because you can see that he wants a specific answer. So he persists. But you can't not have a favorite position. So he wants a particular answer out of her, even though she has given him an answer. It's surprise. But he doesn't want that answer. So the way one can interpret some of the ways he keeps on repeating these questions is that he wants a particular answer. And if he doesn't get it, he continues to ask it until he gets something. So then we go back to, but you can't not have a favorite position. Then the listening ear. And then, I'm just asking at the level of naughty talk chat. Then again the ear. So, and then zzz, presumably indicating falling asleep. So here we have Her last response is at 6:15, or 18:16. He's asked at 18:39, he said lol, with you can't not have a favorite position, followed up by the listening ear. Then at 18:48, he's asked again, purely at the level of naughty talk chat. Then he's put the ear again at 18 minutes past 8. And then he's done his zzz at just after 11 o'clock, 19 minutes past 11. So he's asked her and she has not responded. She has said nothing. And then on the 17th of June, it looks as if he's picked up the conversation again. He starts off the 17th with, they say you do not get into them. So since you get into positions, I'm assuming that he's still referring back to the previous night's conversation.
Just to be clear, are you now on 17 June at 1938?
Yes.
What we got during the evidence was that he told her that she must not go to work.
Okay.
So that it is not in relation to the previous
okay.
conversation.
So at any rate, the last conversation ends with him commenting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times and her not responding. And then she's again commenting on what's happening at work. So I think if you look at the conversation, you can see there are up to 14 questions, at least, if not more, that he's asked her about melting and positions. So they've been repeated in various ways because he wants to know. And the best he could get out of her was surprise. But you could see that's not as satisfactory because it's followed up again. So we go back to 17th of June, which still continues with the conversations about positions. And it starts at 21:27.
That will be on page 1198, Chair. Yes, you can continue.
So now, I mean, she's already told him it's been a rough day at work. And she's talked about the urgent application and the strike. So at 21:27, he goes back to, where were we last night? We were warming up. And her response is, oh no, are you still referring to that? That, again, is like, oh no, are we going there again? Are you still talking about that? I thought that was, the implication I read from this is, are you still talking about that? That was yesterday's conversation. Are you still going on about that? And I think one can read, she's not thrilled to go back to that because she never answered him. He continued asking questions about her favorite position, and that's how the evening ended. And he was still asking her, and she was not responding. So she's, which if you've been asking those questions and somebody's not responding, that's not something they necessarily want to respond to. And I think that's reinforced by her saying, "Are you still referring to that?" And him saying, "Purely because we were about to land." This is quite, I think, here there seems to be him assuming that there was something mutual going on. Because where were we last night? We were warming up. This ignores the fact that she said she gave him the answer of surprise and then did not respond to him again. So there isn't that much mutuality going on. Because we were about to land. Even though she did not respond to him, he is still seeming to think that there was something mutual going on there, that she was telling him what her favorite position was. And then her response is, the exhaustion is extreme. I'm about to sleep. So I'm extremely tired. I want to go to sleep. This is not the time for the conversation. And then it gets into a set of conversations about who's getting up at what hour of the morning to go to work or to write a judgment. And then at 9:20, she says, understood, and it has the embarrassed monkey emoji. He has these halo angel emoji and smile hug face, and then a set of messages with one saying BJ equals, presumably meaning blowjob, and this is how from the evidence it appears that how the complainant understood it.
That's on page 1200. Okay.
At 2132. So although she has told him that she's tired, she's exhausted, it's been a long day, he is still continuing to message her. And it would seem from this, it has sexual content as well. She responds at 2134, not to worry about that. Another deleted message. She says something about length. He says, okay. And then she finishes off by saying, I was still busy, sorry. So presumably explaining why she's not responding to him. So on the 18th of June, at 52 minutes after midnight indicates that he's still waiting for some sort of response.
That's on 1201, Chair. One. Yes? She's getting ready for work. And then this again appears to be a sexual suggestion around especially rear things. Am I wrong? Not at all. Again, you're writing and deleting, but you know I'm busy. So again, she's saying to me, this is distracting. And he says he's distracting because he doesn't want to distract. So then we get to 20th of June. Chair, that would be on 1202 in the middle, but then it jumps over to 1203. It's continuing there.
So we go to 22-23. 2022-23.
Sorry, say again, 22-23.
Yeah.
Of the respondent's messages. It's 1203, Chair. It's on the bottom of the page.
He says, we had not finished our conversation. So that presumably he's referring back to favorite positions. She does the embarrassed, and he says underneath there the other day. So there's previous comments about our conversation, we were about to land, etc. That's the meaning one takes from that. So she has her embarrassed monkey emoji and face, and I am so lazy. Looking at her evidence in chief, the interpretation seems to be settled on, I don't really want to get into this. I don't really want to have this discussion. Then he sends her a picture which she comments on as him being cute. And then, to do what? You make me shy. In what way? And then we get to her saying, I'm in East London, it would be better if we could meet face to face.
Chair, that will be on page 1206.
So why this conversation becomes important is now there is a meeting, a possible meeting, and it's the purpose of the meeting. Why would we be meeting? What would we be doing if we were to meet? So in East London, where she's working, retirement of her grandmother, and then he goes from, so at 10:30 from her, talking about the retirement of her judge. He says, okay. And then he jumps from the meeting straight into, you reckon we can be intimate this week?
Chair, that would be on page 1208 on top. Yes?
You reckon we can be intimate this week? I don't know what her response is. It looks like a sticker of some sort. And then he follows up at 22:32 to say, I'm just asking. And her response is to say, go and read the first word in the Causa Bible of Psalms 1, verse 1. So the way I understand this is she knows him to be religious. She's reminding him of that and referring him to read the Bible. She's giving him, the Bible is a guide to moral conduct. So when you refer people back to the Bible, you are often, one of the things you are doing is you are reminding them of moral behavior and what does the Bible say about what is moral and how we should behave.
She also said the reason why she referred him to that specific verse in the Causa Bible was because of the first word.
Yes. And she actually says that in her WhatsApp. And he says, he obviously doesn't go and look. But says, what does it say? Please remind me. And she says, I wanted you to Google or peruse it. I wanted you to go and read it. I wanted you to see for yourself.
That's on page 1209, Chair. Yes. Sorry, you can continue.
Okay. So his response is at 22:34 about not associating with evildoers. So even if he leaves the word no, he's got the gist of it. Can we be intimate? And her response is, don't associate with evildoers. That's not exactly a sign of, that's not enthusiastic yes to what he's just asked. Wow. So again, the ear, explain. She says, Psalms 1, verse 1, in capitals. Hi, no. So she's very clear. To his response, you reckon we can be intimate? No.
Yes, it's almost lunchtime, so just maybe finish this conversation
Sure.
where you think it's appropriate for us to adjourn for the lunch break.
Yeah. There is also, so there's that. Then there is, I'm at East London. It would be better if we could meet face to face. So he's pointing up again about the meeting. She then goes and Googles, blessed is the one who does not walk in step with the wicked. So that's another way of saying that after she has said no, that the person who stays away from the wicked ones is blessed. She says to him, we should look at each other, not be intimate. So she's saying to him, I would meet with you, but it's under these conditions. It's that we look at each other. We are not intimate. So she's being very clear. No, I am not going to be intimate with you, but if we do meet, it will be to look at each other. It will not be anything. It will not be anything other than that. Let me go back to him waiting for an answer, fanning himself, or a gif of a man fanning himself, and again saying, he's previously said, what if we melt, which is not impossible. So he suggested, what if our feelings overcome each other? And then, which would be reinforced by the picture of the man fanning himself, presumably being overcome by heat and emotion. And she responds to his comment of, it's not impossible it is impossible. So she has been quite clear. No, don't associate yourself with wicked people, with evildoers. It is impossible. But we can meet in order to speak. Then it continues. She says to me, getting the picture of the man fanning himself. You're getting provoked very early, and then he says to her, "But why do you say it's impossible?" And then he goes back to say to her, "Are you provoking?" She's saying it's principle. And then he continues on with, I was going to give you this from the picture of the banana emoji.
That is on page 1213, Chair, at 2245.
She has said to him, no, it's impossible. We can meet, but it won't be intimate. We can look at each other. And he's continuing with, but I was going to give you this one, the banana, presumably meaning the penis. And her response is, Honourable Member, don't do that. It's an expression of disapproval. And then he concludes with, you want us to just be friends? He's again listening for a response. She's saying, you're quiet. And she says, I don't have any answers. I'm just trying to see what I can do to wrap up quickly.
We can continue with this one after lunch,
Okay, all right.
if you feel that it's more appropriate, if you have more to
It's
say
quite
about.
a long, I don't want to gloss over and jump things.
Thank you. We can then continue then with this after lunch.
We'll come back 2:45.